Yellow again. This is a video you were probably expecting, but definitely way sooner than this. In fact, I've recorded this video 2 separate times at this point. And it's not because I've had to rethink my thoughts. My thoughts on this matter have been clear since I watched the videos that I'm going to be talking about. But life comes at you fast. I've gone through some personal stuff I talked about on Instagram. No need to get into it here. You guys just hear me talk about the death battle and attempted debunks of said death battle and a debunk of that debunk. So, before I get into any of that, obviously I need to talk about the death battle itself. The end result was Wally beating Archie Sonic, and I'm sure you've all seen it, so there's no need for me to play any clips from that video. I'll just clarify some things that I think they either did well, or that I believe could have been done better, before I talk about the reaction to it. And before I get into any of that, I'm going to stereotypical YouTuber thing and tell you that if you like the content I provide, you should like the video and subscribe to the channel for more things like it. And I'm going to say it again at the end of the video, because apparently that worked. So, after discussing this subject a little, I want to clear up some scaling that I did for base Sonic before I really get into the nitty-gritty of who wins between him and Wally West. Even though obviously I think Wally slaps no diff. But I will still hold to the fact that no calcs that put Sonic at millions of times faster than light, trillions of times, whatever absurd number you want to use, I don't think that they fit with his scaling at all. I will say that I did not consider some FTL feats from the Flynn era. I will still hold, however, that his feats being in the massively hypersonic range in terms of travel speed is more consistent. But I will say that the lore that requires FTL feats, like the Cosmic Interstate, and things like him reacting to space travel by actually flying the ship manually, I think that coupling that with him having feats of dodging lasers could give him faster than like combat speed or reaction speed, but I can't do it for travel speed. Just not based with all the statements that I presented in the previous 2 videos that I've done on Archie Sonic of him not being able to travel certain distances. It just isn't consistent to me, and I'm not going to lie to you guys and say that I suddenly believe that this is the case. However, that little bit of slight alterations to his stats notwithstanding, Death Battle's conclusion gave Wally the victory because he had superior stamina, superior experience, and that his vibrational abilities would directly counter Sonic's reality warping, which is by far his most powerful ability. Now, personally, I believe that there are aspects which would paint Wally as a clear winner beyond just these few things, but Death Battle did do a lot of good research, and I want to give them credit for that before we go any further, as they looked at Archie Sonic far more than a lot of people do when they debate for him. Especially people who've been wanking him for years, as I went over in my previous 2 videos, which I'd recommend you check out. I will be saving my few minor problems with the death battle for the end of the video, and instead I want to discuss the attempted debunk by a guy named Groovy. And really most of my problems with this guy come from a guy who was actually in the video with him, Speedster, who was supposed to be like the Flash guy, providing knowledge on that character. What I should go over first is something they went over, which is the quantum dial feat. Now, Death Battle attempted to debunk it, and they said that it's clearly smoke. And this is something that I actually agree with. The only reason I have a problem with this is the way they talk about it, because it would be a massive outlier for base Sonic if it was included. To further piggyback off of this, the dial imploding is stated on panel. It's not something that Death Battle made up. Ben didn't come up with that. It was in the panel. So they are following the logical chain of events to make it consistent with Sonic's durability. They didn't to downplay him. They're doing that because Sonic's durability is consistently building level, or using the amp stats that I mentioned in my previous videos, you could argue that he's city level in base. But regardless, something like being blasted millions of light years away would be a massive outlier. So they did what they thought they could do to make it consistent, and I agree with that. Something else that was mentioned by them is that the quantum dial affected space-time, or that Sonic stopping it affected space-time. And I just want to briefly say that in the Archie Sonic universe, almost anything involving space or time affects space-time. Shadow's teleporting affects space-time. Every time reality is messed with in any way, it tears at the fabric of it. And this even causes the Genesis portals, which are featured in the second Sonic Mega Man crossover. Even just traveling between dimensions has an impact on space-time in the Archie Sonic universe. So it seems like a massive stretch to hype the feat when such simple acts can affect it. But moving on from that, another problem that both the Death Battle and Groovey's video have is a poor understanding of the speed steal. After having talked to one of the researchers about it, I know that Death Battle had to cut the subject for time. However, Speedster, who was just seemed to be having a conversation with Groovy, does not get this form of leeway because he had no such constraint from what I can tell. He claimed that the speed steal wasn't instant on non-Speed Force users, and I'm paraphrasing, so bear with me, but as always, all the videos I'm talking about will be linked in the description box down below if you want to fact check me. This is wrong. We can clearly see that Wally steals speed from Girder, and that he does so instantly. He did this without touching him, which is the opposite of how the fight was portrayed in Death Battle. The fact that the animations don't necessarily mean anything notwithstanding, and Jay and Wallace, who learned how to steal speed directly from Wally, could take it from bullets, again without touching them. When you put all these facts together, you realize how stupid the argument presented by Speedster truly is. Now we can finally discuss Plausible, whose video I actually really enjoyed. Actually, other than the death battle, I enjoyed his response video the most. And he's actually going to be the only one whose footage I actually use in my video. Something that was said by Death Battle, Groovy, Speedster, and Plos is that speed is irrelevant. They both break the speed formula and have relative speed, so it isn't a factor in the fight. I disagree heavily.
I can't say I fully agree with this. Now, if we take their normal speeds, I would agree that they are pretty much relative. If you want some context for some speed feats I'm about to bring up, I would go watch my prediction video and go to the speed segment. Wally and Sonic do universe-crossing feats or skill to them that are done potentially across infinite space. They have shown to move through time or surpass it with their speed, and the list goes on. Wally's typical usage of the Speed Force would be around Sonic, but I do think a peak Wally would have a far better showing of speed than even a peak Sonic with all of his forms.
Now my problem with this assessment is that in order to make Sonic comparable to Wally, you have to be incredibly generous to him. In my video on Base Sonic, I discussed how Sonic's speed would be consistently below Wally's, as most of his feats imply that he's massively hypersonic in terms of travel speed. And I could agree on faster than light reactions, as I mentioned earlier, and him potentially having low-level faster than light travel for lore reasons, like the Cosmic Interstate, but Wally is consistently above characters that are massively faster than light. And these are characters that don't compare to Wally at all. The only way you can put Sonic on par with Wally is using his transformations, which is probably obvious, because his base is fucking fodder. There's no world where Wally is as slow as that, unless you use, like, the very start of his run after his speed was limited. But even when you use Supersonic, the highest you can get his speed to is infinite. Like Plos mentioned, breaking the speed formula is why higher speed tiers exist in debating. Sonic being able to surpass Time Stop gives him infinite speed, because he surpassed the time aspect of the distance over time formula. Now this is impressive, but Wally surpasses that easily, which is the real reason I wanted to talk about the subject. In debating, there are three main speed tiers people discuss for speed that cannot be conventionally measured. There's infinite speed, which is the lowest, defined by breaking the speed formula, covering an infinite distance in a finite amount of time, for instance. There is immeasurable speed, which is commonly defined by the ability to travel through time, though I prefer to use it as just a level above infinite speed, and one that can thus not even be quantified by that value, even though infinite technically isn't a value, but we're not going to get into that right now. And then finally, there's irrelevant speed, which is where you get so far into speed scaling that it's an irrelevant factor. Your speed is at such a high degree that you're literally transcendent of the concept. Wally qualifies for the latter two, because the Flash is the fastest man in the multiverse, and faster than the Speed Force itself. He's considered to be the fastest being in all of existence. This matters because this means that any speed feat performed by any DC character in the entire multiverse that isn't a higher dimensional being directly scales to Wally. This also means that because he surpasses the Speed Force, any feat done by a speedster connected to it in terms of speed scales to him directly. So that means that feats of pre-Crisis characters, like Barry Allen, who is the fastest man in that multiverse, scale directly to Wally. This means that all of his immeasurable feats, him being faster than Superman, who has my favorite immeasurable feat of surpassing the bounds of infinity because of just how straightforward it is, scales to him. He'd also be above Barry Allen entering the Source, which can be argued as an irrelevant feat, and Wally running to the point where death ceases to exist on a conceptual level would also be a really big qualifier for that tier. So the best you could say for Ultrasonic is that maybe he transcends infinite to get to immeasurable, even though we don't know the multiplier for Ultrasonic. But if you, like I said, if we really just fillet Sonic, get on our hands and knees, we're DeviantArt, we're sucking him off, let's give Ultrasonic immeasurable speed. Wally scales above more impressive immeasurable characters easily, because they have actual immeasurable feats, and he scales above their power source. All that being said, I'm going to give some closing thoughts because I don't want this video to be too long, to save you guys some time and to save me some time in the editing room. In terms of a fight, I'm going to be very sparing. We're going to wink Sonic like we've been doing this whole time. So even though most of his feats in his super form, his most powerful transformation outside of Ultrasonic, the form we see the most for his quality feats, even though most of the destructive feats are planned to star level, we're going to say that he's reality warping scales directly to AP, even though it's never shown to do that. So Sonic is now multiversal. Infinite multiversal, by the way. Not just like low multiversal with multiple universes. I mean, he can destroy an infinite amount of universes. He's nowhere near as fast as Wally, despite this. Alright? Because even if we give Ultrasonic multiversal AP, like I said, wanking him, he's immeasurable at best. And then we can even say, okay, he's invincible, so Sonic cannot be hurt by Wally in any way, without even arguing about what Wally's AP would be. Speed-wise, I've already proven he'd be objectively far faster. He has greater stamina. The Flash can run for multiple days at a time, whereas, and that top speed, Sonic can only maintain the super form for, again, being generous because we're sucking him off for like a day. So all Wally would have to do is outrun him and outlast him, and he could easily do that. And then even lowballing the Flash to like planet level in terms of AP would be more than enough to slap base Sonic. So just using those attributes alone, Wally would easily beat Archie Sonic. Especially since I debunked all the bullshit hacks that he has, which again, check out my previous 2 videos on Archie Sonic for that mess. And this isn't even me getting into things like the Flash's hacks, like Speed Steal, which I think would be an easy win for him. Not addressing the fact that he could time travel, because Archie Sonic has not displayed any proficient abilities in that manner. We could even mention the fact that he couldn't get rid of the Speed Force, because the Speed Force literally dwarfs all the cosmology in the Archie Sonic universe. There just isn't any reliable way for Sonic to win, unless we argue that he starts off in Ultra and then blitzes Wally while he's still using human level perceptions. But even that probably wouldn't work, because we've seen characters like Impulse instantly activate their super speed reflexes when in presence of another speedster. So unless you want to argue that he only did this because of the Speed Force, which Wally actually has a feat of being shot in the back of the head with a bullet, and it actually automatically activated his speed before he could be shot by it. He also survived an explosion this same way. So really using Wally's own feats, he would instantly react to Sonic regardless. So I'm completely willing to just wank him, even though I debunked all of these points in my previous videos. And the last thing I'm probably going to mention is to directly address Plows, who I've been told is going to be making a video on my Sonic videos, which I look forward to watching, because his content actually does entertain me. At least the one video I watched where he debunked Ruby. But not to get too off track, he says not to use anti-feats to try to downplay either of the characters. And I agree that anti-feats should never be used. Obviously, there are different circumstances, and there are times when, especially in comic books, when writers just don't know a character's true abilities and just write themselves out of a jam by downplaying them. But my videos were not made with the intent to downplay Sonic. My videos were my honest opinion on what his stats are. So the fact that they are wildly different from what people usually say, it's not because they're downplayed. It's because I went through and read over like 200 Sonic comics. I've been thinking about it. I should probably calculate the number at some point. It wouldn't be that hard. But I'm going to ballpark it at no more than probably like 500. I read 500 Sonic comics, scaled every character in the verse, and this is the conclusion that I came to. The reason I say he's like city level max is not to downplay Sonic. It's because reasonably, in his base form, that's the best you can give his stats. Same for me not putting him at multiversal. He doesn't scale to the multiversal characters in terms of AP. He only has multiversal reality warping, and all of his feats and super contradict him being multiversal because he's hurt by planet and star level attacks, and those are the only feats he's given. So that's just something I want to get out there now, because I don't want to be known as like the Sonic downplayer guy, even though I've gotten that claim a few times. My intent was always to read it and come out with what his actual stats were, and this is what they were. So this clears up my thoughts on who would win, and I hope this clears up what my thoughts on the death battle itself were. I actually thought it was pretty good. Groovy's video, it's kind of hard to sit through because the audio wasn't very good, and obviously I shouldn't be talking about audio, hasn't always been the best, but even sitting through it is a lot of wank, and I recommend watching Plows' video because he debunks it very well. However, I can't agree with the way he scales at speed, which is why he had to get a little bit of debunking from me here too. But overall, the discourse has actually been a lot more mature than I was expecting, and this is definitely one of the better death battles in my opinion. Though really it's an opinion based on objective facts, so do with that what you will. However, this is going to be the new format for responding to videos, so I hope you enjoyed it. Leave a like if you enjoyed it. See, told you to come full circle. I'm asking you to do it again. Subscribe if you're new. Subscriptions and interactivity really help the channel. And we've been receiving a lot of growth recently, and I don't thank you guys enough for that. Victory and I really appreciate that. And we want you to know that we're working on a lot of new videos, a lot of new content, a lot of new scaling. Going to get back to doing reviews, something we haven't done in a very long time. So if you enjoyed, you're going to want to be a part of that. So subscribe, hit us up on the social medias, which are all linked in the description box down below. That includes Discord. I'm working on getting the Twitter back up and running, but until then, you can follow my personal Twitter. And feel free to share the video around, because I know there's a lot of misinformation still going around about these characters, and I'd love to clear it up. And maybe at some point I'll do a full-fledged video on Wally's stats, because I don't think all of them need to be mentioned. Like I said, just his speed and stamina alone is enough to prove he slaps Sonic. Now, this has been Tap108, telling you to have a great rest of your day. And remember, just because your character isn't the fastest, doesn't mean they're not cool. Peace.